I landed at O'Hare the day before Thanksgiving. It was cold, not the charming, postcard kind of cold, but a bone-deep Midwestern chill that stung my face the second I stepped outside. My hands were still shaking from the flight, but not because I was nervous, I was excited. This was going to be the first Thanksgiving I'd spent at home in 3 years. Between college, jobs, and a relationship that didn't survive long enough to matter, I'd missed the last few. But this time, I was finally making it. I had even kept it a surprise. Annalise knew I was coming. She was always my safe person, the one who saw through every text and could hear the fatigue in my voice before I even said hello. I asked her not to tell anyone. I thought it would be sweet to just show up, walk in with a grin and a pie, and hear the kind of laughter that only happens when surprise turns into joy. My Uber pulled up in front of the house around 7:15 p.m. The lights were off. Not dim, off. The porch, usually strung with twinkling lights and a seasonal wreath, was bare. There was no smell of sage or cinnamon rolls in the air. No voices drifting from the kitchen. No muffled football commentary from the living room. I stood there, suitcase at my feet, pie carrier still warm in my hand, staring at the door. For a second, I thought maybe they were out. A last-minute run to the store? Picking up someone from the airport? But even that felt wrong. My mom, the queen of prep and planning, wouldn't leave the house the night before Thanksgiving, especially not with guests supposedly coming. I rang the bell. Waited. Nothing. I knocked. Still nothing. That's when the first pinprick of confusion hit me. Not panic, not hurt. Just confusion. The kind that makes your stomach sit a little heavier than it should. I pulled out my phone and called my mom. It rang 4 times and went to voicemail. I tried Dad. Then my older brother. Then my sister. Each one rang. Each one went dead. Not declined. Not blocked. Just unanswered. That's when it started to shift, confusion bending into discomfort, discomfort slipping toward the edge of something worse. I called Annalise. She picked up on the second ring. Sweetheart? Hey, I said, forcing a smile even though no one could see me. I'm here. At the house. There was a pause. A long one. Then her voice dropped into something quieter, something cautious. Oh no. You weren't supposed to come yet, were you? My heart thudded once. What do you mean? I told you I was coming for Thanksgiving. Yes, but... She exhaled. They left. Yesterday. I blinked. Left where? They went to Florida. Your brother's girlfriend's family rented a beach house. Your mom thought it would be a fun change of scenery. Last-minute thing. But no one told me. I know. My throat went dry. They just left? I told your mom you were coming. She said she didn't want to ruin the surprise by canceling your trip. I assumed she told you. She hadn't. I looked around the street, still clinging to some version of logic that might make this feel less cruel. They left me here. There was silence on the line. Yes, Annalise said softly. They did. Annalise arrived 15 minutes later. Her small car pulled into the driveway like it was sneaking up on the truth. She stepped out, bundled in a long navy coat, gray hair pinned up, lips tight, not angry, but pained. Like someone who tried to stop a train wreck and now had to help pick up the pieces. She didn't ask questions. She didn't offer excuses. She just walked up to me, wrapped her arms around my shoulders, and held me for longer than I expected. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I nodded, but my jaw was locked too tight to say anything back. She took the spare key from her coat pocket and unlocked the door. It creaked open like it hadn't been used in days, because it hadn't. Inside, the house felt wrong. It was clean, spotless even, but stripped of life. No coats by the door. No grocery bags on the counter. No smell of turkey brine or cinnamon rolls or half-prepped casseroles. The fridge was nearly empty except for condiments and a half-used bottle of white wine. Even the fruit bowl was gone. They didn't just leave. They cleared out. Annalise walked ahead, flicking on lights room by room like she was trying to make it feel normal. But it didn't. It felt like a hollow stage set, familiar walls, no heartbeat. You can stay at my place, she said gently. I figured, well, I didn't think they'd leave the house empty, but I brought an overnight bag just in case. I sat down at the kitchen island and set the pie on the counter. I stared at it, golden crust, perfectly browned edges, a little foil tag still attached from the bakery near my apartment. I had picked it out specially because Mom always said she hated overly sweet pumpkin pie. I couldn't even picture her face clearly right now. Just that gut-hollowing fact, they knew I was coming. And they left anyway. You told her, didn't you? I finally asked. Aunt Elise sighed. I did. A few days ago. I reminded her you'd said you were surprising them, that you already had your ticket. She waved it off. Said it would all work itself out. Work it out. What was I supposed to be in that scenario? The leftover? The one who'd shrug and laugh it off? Why didn't she just tell me? I asked. Cancel. Reschedule. Anything. Elise gave me a long look. The kind of adults give when they know the truth will cut deeper than the lie. Because that would have meant admitting they didn't want to change their plans. That they chose something else over staying. But I'm their kid. I know. I felt my throat close. I thought coming home would matter to them. Elise sat down across from me. I think it did. Just not enough. That sentence sat in the room like a cold draft. She didn't try to justify it. She didn't say, they're under a lot of stress. Or, you know how your mom gets. She just told the truth. That maybe, at some point, I had stopped being the priority. Or maybe I never was, not in the way I thought. I helped Elise lock up the house before we left. In the living room, there was a single framed photo left behind on the bookshelf, an old family shot from years ago. I was barely 14 in it. Everyone was smiling. That particular version of us didn't exist anymore. Before stepping out, I turned the photo face down. Not in anger. In recognition. That version of home, the one I had flown across the country to chase, was already gone long before I arrived. Aunt Elise's house had always felt like a softer version of the one I grew up in. Same layout. Same builder. But hers had warmth in the corners, knit blankets over the couch, framed paintings from local art fairs, small tokens that said someone lived here intentionally. That night she made tea while I sat curled up in her living room, wrapped in an old quilt I remembered from when I was little. We didn't speak much. The silence wasn't awkward, it was necessary. I didn't need questions. I needed space. Around 9:30, she brought over a mug and set it gently on the coffee table. You should know something, she said, her voice low. Not because I want to stir the pot, but because I think you deserve the full picture. I looked up, brows furrowed. She sat down across from me and folded her hands in her lap. That trip to Florida? The one they said was last minute? It wasn't. What do you mean? Your mom called me 3 weeks ago. Asked if I could help water the plants while they were away. Said they'd be gone the week of Thanksgiving. She didn't sound rushed. She had it planned. I blinked. 3 weeks ago? She nodded. At least. Maybe longer. Flights, house rental, the whole thing. My stomach flipped. 3 weeks ago, I had been texting my mom memes. Calling her to ask which pie she liked best. She never said a word. Not a hint. They made a plan to leave and chose not to tell me. I set my mug down, untouched. She told you I was coming, I said slowly, and then turned around and booked a vacation. She said they needed a break. Those things had been tense. I didn't realize she hadn't told you, until tonight. Tense. Was that it? Was I the tension? Had I become the unspoken obligation, the relative you invite out of tradition but secretly hope will say no? Elise reached over and squeezed my hand. You deserve better than this. I nodded, but the ache didn't ease. It settled deeper. Because this wasn't just about the house being empty, or the unanswered phone calls, or the warm pie cooling on an empty counter. This was about knowing I was coming and deciding to leave anyway. This was about omission as a strategy, using silence to sidestep the discomfort of having to own a decision. They could have told me. They could have said, we already made plans. They could have offered to reschedule. They could have asked me to join. But instead they acted like I didn't exist. Like I was an extra line item in their emotional budget they couldn't afford this year. Later that night, I sat on Elisa's guest bed with my laptop open. I couldn't sleep, so I started looking through old messages. Backlogs of texts from my mom. Conversations that, in hindsight, read like stage directions, carefully vague, cheerfully shallow. There wasn't a single message about Thanksgiving. Not one. She had dodged it entirely. And me? I had read that as love. I had told myself, she's just busy. It'll be fine when I show up. I was wrong. I clicked over to the airline's site. My return flight wasn't for 4 more days. I could have changed it, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to retreat. I wanted to exist here, to take up space, to feel the weight of the moment, to stop letting people get away with disappearing me. The next morning, Elise made pancakes and set a place at the table without comment. She didn't ask how I slept. Didn't prod. Instead, she poured syrup, set the fork beside my plate, and said, "So, what do you want to do today?" For the first time in days, I didn't feel like a problem to be solved. I felt like a person someone was simply glad to see. After breakfast, we bundled up and walked to the park 2 blocks from Aunt Elise's house. The air had that sharp edge of late November, cold, but not painful. The kind of weather that makes you move slower, breathe deeper. We didn't say much as we walked. The leaves had all dropped, carpeting the sidewalk in soft gold and brown. There was no rush. No agenda. Just time. Eventually, we found an empty bench facing a line of bare trees, and Elise sat down, tucking her gloves into her coat pocket. "I've been waiting a long time to tell you something," she said. "But I didn't know if it would help or just hurt." I looked over, eyebrows raised. "What is it?" She leaned back against the bench, her eyes scanning the trees like she was watching memories drift by. "I know what it feels like to be left behind by this family. Not literally, not like a forgotten Thanksgiving invite. But emotionally. Quietly. Strategically." I frowned. I had always seen Aunt Elise as the strong one, the grounded one who didn't need validation. I had never once considered she'd feel like me. "When I was younger," she continued, "I was engaged to someone they didn't approve of. Your mom hated him. Said he wasn't on our level. Dad wouldn't even say his name. One year, I showed up to Christmas, and they had already celebrated 2 days earlier, without telling me." I blinked. "Seriously?" She nodded. "They said they were too busy to reschedule. That I should have called first. I'd brought gifts. Made dessert. They took the pie and sent me home." She smiled, but there was no humor in it. "That's when I learned something. When our family feels uncomfortable, they don't confront. They edit. They delete people quietly and hope the silence will smooth over the ugliness." It was eerie how familiar that sounded. I exhaled slowly. "So it's not just me. It's never been just you," she said. "But you're the first one to say it out loud." That sentence stuck with me for hours after we walked home. You're the first one to say it out loud. It made sense now, the silences, the casual deflections, the way I had felt like a background character in my own family story for years. It wasn't an accident. It was practice. They had done this before. And like Aunt Elise, I had always blamed myself. Thought maybe I was too sensitive, too reactive, too much. But maybe I was just the latest person who made things inconvenient. That evening, I asked her something I'd been circling for days. "Why didn't you go with them?" She paused in the middle of folding laundry. Looked up at me with a faint smile. "Because I knew what it was. Mia's family paid for the rental, and your mom wanted to keep things simple. I would have been a complication." I stared at her. "So you were cut too?" She nodded. Quietly. "No drama. Just a shrinking list." I shook my head. "And you're okay with that?" She folded the towel, placed it in the basket, and said, "I'm not okay with it. I'm just not waiting on them to feel guilty about it." That hit hard. I'd been doing exactly that. Checking my phone, scanning for apologies, replaying conversations. Hoping someone would call and say the thing I needed to hear. But they hadn't. And maybe they wouldn't. That night, I sat in bed and wrote a letter. Not to send. Not to weaponize. Just to say what needed to be said for me. I wrote. "You could have just told me. You could have said we're doing something different this year. You could have been honest. But instead, you made a choice. And I'm making one now, too. I'm done asking to be included." I folded the paper and left it on the nightstand. I didn't need them to read it. I just needed to say it out loud, finally. It started with a group message. The same family thread that had gone silent for days suddenly lit up like nothing had happened. Dad, hope everyone's having a great weekend. Sending love from sunny Florida. Then a photo followed, the whole crew standing on a dock. Ryan, Mom, Dad, even my sister, Lauren, all smiling, arms around me as parents. Everyone looked like a Pinterest ad for blended families. No caption. No acknowledgement that I wasn't there. Just a wide-angle view that made it look like everything was whole. I didn't reply. But I didn't have to. An hour later, my phone buzzed again. Lauren. Direct message. Hey. I heard you ended up staying with Aunt Elise? That wasn't supposed to happen. I stared at the message for a while. Wasn't supposed to happen. What did that even mean? I was supposed to go back to the airport quietly? Wait at the empty house like a forgotten Amazon package? I typed, then deleted. Then typed again. Eventually, I settled on. No one told me the house would be empty. What did you expect? She responded quickly. I thought Mom told you. She said you changed your plans or something. We didn't know you were still coming. There it was. The first crack in the story. Mom had told them I wasn't coming. Which meant she lied, not just by omission, but actively. She covered herself in silence, and then rewrote my role entirely. Later that night, Dad called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Hey, kiddo. We missed you this week. Mia's family is great, but it didn't feel the same without all of us. I think your mom's just been stressed lately, and things got crossed. Let's catch up soon, okay? Things got crossed. What a clean phrase for a dirty choice. The next day, I told Aunt Elise. She didn't look surprised. Just tired. They're not reaching out to apologize, she said. They're reaching out to erase the discomfort. She was right. None of the messages included an apology. None said, we left you. We hurt you. Instead, they were soaked in that toxic brand of, let's not make a thing out of this. Energy, where resolution means you stop being upset, not that they start being accountable. That evening, I got a text from Mom. The one I'd been waiting for. The one that, somewhere deep down, I still hoped would be different. Sweetheart, I heard you were hurt by how the holiday went. I'm sorry if there was confusion. That was never our intention. We just didn't want to pressure you. I stared at the screen for a long time. Pressure me? I'd flown across the country. Bought a pie. Packed a suitcase. The only pressure was mine, the pressure to matter. And still, in her version of events, she was protecting me. Not excluding me. I didn't reply. I was tired of explaining why their actions hurt. Tired of asking people who should already know me to see me. That night, Elise and I sat on the couch watching an old baking show rerun, and for the first time all week, I laughed. Real laughter. Not the polite kind. The kind that bubbles out before you can stop it. She looked over and smiled. You're going to be okay, you know. I know, I said. And I meant it. Because something had finally clicked. They weren't reaching out to repair anything. They were reaching out to rewrite the story. And this time? I wasn't going to let them hold the pen. The next morning, I sat at Aunt Elise's dining table with my laptop open and a blank email screen glowing in front of me. Not out of spite. Not to unleash some grand, dramatic reckoning. But I needed to stop letting other people tell my version of the story. For days, they'd been spinning it, confused plans, holiday stress. We thought you weren't coming. But I had the receipts. I had the text release, the booking confirmation, and the voicemail they never answered. And I had the truth they knew. So I started writing. Subject, for the record. Hi all. I wanted to be clear about something, since there seems to be a lot of confusion. I told you, clearly, I was coming home for Thanksgiving. I booked flights. I packed. I brought a pie. When I arrived, the house was empty. And what hurt wasn't just that you left, it's that you planned it. You booked the trip weeks ago. You asked someone to water the plants. You made a choice. You also didn't tell me. You could have canceled. You could have explained. You didn't. Instead, you quietly exited and let me walk into an empty house with no warning. That's not a scheduling issue. That's not stress. That's erasure. And now, I'm getting messages that try to soften it. We miss you. It didn't feel the same. We thought plans had changed. You didn't miss me. You removed me. And I'm not writing this because I want to fight. I'm writing it because I'm not going to let this story get reshaped into one where I'm the misunderstanding. I was there. You weren't. That's the whole story. Eh? I reread it once, then hit send. No edits. No filter. Just facts, clearly and calmly stated. Elise walked into the kitchen and refilled her mug, eyeing me over the rim. You finally did it, huh? I nodded. Good, she said. Now let's see who blinks first. They blinked fast. Lauren replied first. Okay, wow. That's a bit harsh. Then Dad. Look, we're sorry if you feel hurt, but this kind of message doesn't help anyone. If I feel hurt. Classic. Mom replied hours later. Hers was the longest. I don't think it's fair to paint us this way. We never meant to exclude you. We just didn't want to upset you with last-minute changes, and thought you'd enjoy the time with Elise. It wasn't personal. We love you. I stared at that line. It wasn't personal. I closed the thread without replying. Because here's the thing, it was personal. It was always personal. It was personal the second they chose comfort over conversation. That night, I read Grandma Jean's Thanksgiving postcard, the one Elise found tucked into a drawer and handed me with a wink. It said, I hope wherever you are, you're warm, safe, and know that someone's thankful for you, just for being you. That's what the day should be about. That was all I needed. I didn't respond to the emails. Didn't return calls. Because the closure didn't live in their guilt, or lack of it. It lived in finally saying what happened, without asking anyone for permission to feel it. A week after Thanksgiving, the text stopped. No more emotional voicemails. No more. Just checking in. Things from Mom. No more vague statements from Dad about letting things cool down. The silence they had once used as a tool to avoid confrontation? Now it was mine. And this time, it wasn't empty. It was intentional. I stayed with Aunt Elise until Sunday. We made it a rule not to talk about the family unless one of us brought it up. She never pushed. She just kept the kettle full and the couch open. On Saturday night, we played cards until nearly midnight. No phones, no tension. Just her, me, and an old Motown record humming in the background. Somewhere around the fourth hand, she said, You know, you're the first one in this family who didn't turn your pain into a joke. I looked up. You told the truth. That's braver than you think. When I flew home the next day, I didn't cry at the airport like I expected to. I wasn't grieving a loss. I was letting go of a role I'd been forced to play since childhood. The peacemaker. The middle person. The one who made everyone feel okay, even when I was unraveling. This time, I didn't write a follow-up message. Didn't cave. Didn't ask them to clarify or reconsider. I just let the silence stand. Because I'd realized something no one ever tells you. You don't have to keep showing up for people who leave you standing in the dark. 2 weeks later, a card came in the mail. Handwritten. From Mia. It read, I didn't know you were coming. I didn't know they hadn't told you. I only found out what happened after. I'm not asking you to forgive anyone. I just wanted to say, if it had been up to me, you would have had a seat at the table. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. It was honest. Or it felt that way. And I appreciated it. But I didn't reply. Because this wasn't about her. It was about a system. A family rhythm that allowed people to disappear others as long as no one yelled too loudly. And I had stopped being quiet. December rolled in. I decorated my apartment for the holidays, slowly, deliberately. Not with nostalgia, but with new intention. No family ornaments. No old boxes of tradition. Just string lights, a thrifted wreath, and a tiny silver tree from the dollar store. It was mine. All of it. One night, I invited a few friends over. We cooked together, listened to Nina Simone, drank cider, and laughed so hard it made my ribs ache. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like something was missing. Because I wasn't trying to replicate home anymore. I was building one. At the end of the evening, one of my friends asked, So, any family plans for Christmas? I didn't hesitate. Nothing official, I said. Just whatever brings me peace. They raised their glass. To that. And we clinked glasses, not in sadness but in choice. Sometimes the hardest part isn't losing your place at the table. It's realizing you were never truly seen in it in the first place. And that's okay. Because once you stop asking for crumbs, you finally have room to build your feast, one where you're not just invited. You're centered.